To be an enemy of America can be dangerous, but to be a friend is fatal. This paradox has haunted global politics for decades, shaping the decisions of leaders and the destinies of nations. That quote, often linked to Henry Kissinger, feels chillingly relevant today. It's a warning that echoes through the halls of power, a reminder that alliances with superpowers come with a price. The world is watching a high-stakes drama unfold, a geopolitical chess match for the 21st century, where every move is scrutinized and every misstep can have global repercussions. On one side, Washington, D.C., confident, loud, used to getting its way, wielding its influence with the certainty of a nation that has long set the rules. On the other, Beijing, patient, ambitious, no longer hiding its strength. China is stepping onto the world stage with a new sense of purpose, determined to reshape the global order. China is now a technological titan and a diplomatic force, rewriting the rules of global engagement. Its rise is not just economic but strategic, building influence in boardrooms, parliaments, and infrastructure projects across continents. The contrast is stark. America acts with brash demands, using its power openly. China builds leverage quietly, relationship by relationship, often working behind the scenes to secure its interests. Caught in the middle are America's allies, nations that once relied on U.S. protection, now discovering the cost of that embrace. Their security comes with strings attached, and those strings are tightening. The superpower's hug can feel more like a python's squeeze, slowly constricting until escape seems impossible. This isn't an academic debate, it's a real-world crisis with consequences for millions. Ordinary people feel the impact in their jobs, their savings, and their daily lives. The first domino has fallen, in Tokyo. What seemed unthinkable just months ago is now reality, and the shockwaves are only beginning. A deal was signed, a prime minister toppled, and a $550 billion betrayal sent shockwaves across the Pacific. The aftershocks rattled boardrooms and government offices from Tokyo to Washington. This exposed the brutal reality of modern alliances and gave China the perfect opening. Beijing seized the moment, turning crisis into opportunity and advancing its own agenda. What's unfolding isn't just a trade dispute, it's the opening salvo in a battle for the future. The stakes are nothing less than global leadership and the rules that will govern the next century. Who will hold power, set the rules, and shape the coming century? The answer is being written right now, in boardrooms, summits, and secret negotiations. It all started with a piece of paper, a declaration of economic war on a friend. The game is on and the world is watching every move. The story begins with the U.S.-Japan Strategic Alignment Pact, a deal hailed as a diplomatic triumph by leaders on both sides. Cameras flashed, hands were shaken, and the world was told this was a new era of partnership between two economic giants. But behind the polished smiles and official statements, the reality was far more troubling. For Japan, this was not a partnership, but an economic capitulation, forced on Tokyo by relentless pressure from Washington. The pact demanded that Japan purchase a staggering $550 billion in U.S. goods over just 5 years, everything from American cars and agricultural products to cloud computing services, regardless of the impact on Japan's own industries and workers. It was a one-sided deal, designed to flood Japanese markets with American exports. This wasn't a negotiation in any real sense, it was a shakedown. U.S. officials threatened crippling tariffs and even hinted at withdrawing vital security guarantees if Japan didn't comply. The message was clear: agree, or face isolation and economic pain. Prime Minister Kenji Tanaka, long considered a staunch ally of the United States, suddenly found himself trapped. He faced an impossible choice: risk economic chaos and possible recession, or accept national humiliation on the world stage. In the end, Tanaka signed the agreement, hoping that preserving the U.S.-Japan alliance would justify the cost. He believed that stability and security were worth the sacrifice. But when details of the deal leaked to the public, the reaction was immediate and explosive. Outraged citizens flooded the streets of Tokyo, waving banners and demanding answers from their leaders. Headlines screamed of surrender and betrayal. For many Japanese, the pact was not a compromise but a national humiliation, a stark reminder of past defeats and lost dignity. Overnight, Tanaka became the lightning rod for public anger. His approval ratings collapsed as the nation's outrage grew louder and more intense. Opposition parties seized the moment, calling for his immediate resignation and accusing him of betraying Japan's sovereignty and the trust of its people. The deal shattered Japan's post-war identity, one built on resilience, pride, and the hard-won dignity of a nation rebuilt from ashes. Now, that identity seemed lost. Within a week, Tanaka resigned in disgrace, leaving behind a power vacuum and a stark warning to U.S. allies everywhere. Even the closest partnerships can come at a devastating cost. The message was unmistakable. Loyalty to Washington can cost you everything, from economic independence to national pride. The shockwaves from Japan's surrender were just beginning to spread. And in Beijing, leaders watched closely, calculating their next move as the balance of power in Asia began to shift. The fallout in Japan was immediate. The $550 billion figure became a symbol of disgrace. Protests erupted, salarymen, farmers, workers, all united in anger. Media turned on Tanaka, dissecting every humiliating clause. His approval ratings plummeted, his own party abandoned him. The opposition called for a vote of no confidence. The deal was seen as a betrayal of Japan's industrial pride and dignity. Tanaka's attempts to defend the pact fell flat. The public saw a leader who had buckled under U.S. pressure. The narrative was set. The price of alliance was too high. 1 week later, Tanaka resigned, taking responsibility for the crisis. His departure left Japan leaderless, and sent a chilling message to U.S. allies. Loyalty to Washington comes at a steep price. The tremors spread across Asia. As Japan reeled, South Korea was next. The U.S. abruptly canceled work visas for thousands of skilled Hyundai engineers in Georgia, citing an America First labor initiative. Families were uprooted overnight. News in Seoul showed children in tears, homes packed in boxes. These weren't illegal immigrants. They were the backbone of a multi-billion-dollar investment. The message: even loyal partners are disposable. Outrage exploded in South Korea. Protests, furious editorials, and a formal diplomatic protest. The U.S. appeared erratic and untrustworthy. The Hyundai humiliation became a cautionary tale in Seoul's boardrooms. Depending on America was now seen as a dangerous gamble. Disillusionment spread, and Beijing was ready to fill the vacuum. The balance of power was shifting. While Washington alienated allies, Beijing seized the moment. China saw opportunity in the chaos, positioning itself as a stable alternative. Its first move targeted America's tech crown jewel, semiconductors. China launched a sweeping antitrust probe into U.S. tech firms, freezing Nvidia's operations. Simultaneously, a massive Buy China campaign redirected billions to domestic tech champions. U.S. firms lost access to their biggest market. Chinese companies like Huawei and SMIC surged. The message: China could inflict real pain on America's critical industries. By weaponizing its market, China turned U.S. corporate reliance into a vulnerability. The tech war had entered a new, dangerous phase. Beijing was no longer playing defense, it was on the attack. Nvidia's stock crashed, its China business ground to a halt. But Beijing's strategy was more than regulatory attack. It was industrial war. Billions in subsidies fueled a new generation of Chinese chipmakers. U.S. firms were squeezed out of China and faced subsidized rivals globally. State media framed American tech as a Trojan horse, untrustworthy for national security. The boycott extended to software, cloud, and the entire tech ecosystem. Silicon Valley's future in China was suddenly uncertain. China's tech nationalism accelerated its own innovation, creating a closed-loop ecosystem. While Washington punished allies, China built a self-reliant fortress. The chip war was no longer about market share. It was about two competing tech universes. The rules had changed overnight. America's dominance was under siege. The world was splitting in two. China's retaliation hit America's heartland, agriculture. U.S. soybean farmers, long dependent on China, suddenly lost their biggest customer. Chinese buyers quietly shifted to Brazil and Argentina, locking in new suppliers. Soybean prices collapsed, warehouses overflowed, farmers faced bankruptcy, their investments wiped out. The pain was political. Rural states, a key U.S. base, were targeted. Town halls erupted with anger at Washington's foreign policy. The soybean gambit was economic statecraft at its finest. China weaponized what it chose to buy, not just what it sold. By diversifying imports, China insulated itself and undermined the U.S. from within. Iowa's fields became a new front in the global struggle. American farmers were on the front lines, taking heavy casualties. The cost of superpower rivalry was now painfully clear. These crises aren't isolated, they're part of China's grand strategy, the Belt and Road Initiative. The BRI is more than infrastructure, it's a vehicle for Chinese power. Ports, railways, and fiber optic cables tie countries' futures to Beijing. Debt to Chinese banks gives Beijing leverage over political decisions. It's a new empire, built with loans, not armies. Recent events fit perfectly. As the U.S. pushes allies away, China offers partnership and investment. The soybean shift strengthens China's ties with Brazil and Argentina. The tech war ensures the digital world runs on Chinese standards. China is building a parallel global system, its own trade routes, banks, and technology. While America chases short-term wins, China builds a new world order. The center of gravity is shifting, quietly, methodically, and ambitiously. We return to Kissinger's words, "To be a friend is fatal." His warning echoes through the decades, a reminder that alliances with great powers can come at a steep cost, often paid by the loyal rather than the powerful. Japan, once a steadfast and loyal ally, found itself humiliated and leaderless in the aftermath of shifting American priorities. The nation's confidence was shaken, its leaders left searching for direction as the world watched. South Korea's trust, carefully built over decades, was suddenly shattered. The sense of betrayal ran deep, leaving scars that would not easily heal. Even at home, American farmers, once the backbone of the nation, were sacrificed in a global chess match, their livelihoods traded for diplomatic leverage on the world stage. The evidence is clear. U.S. alliances now come with a heavy price. Friends and partners must weigh loyalty against the risk of abandonment. The world faces a stark and difficult choice: America's unpredictable transactional leadership, where loyalty is never guaranteed, or China's stable, if authoritarian, embrace, promising consistency but demanding compliance. China offers investment, infrastructure, and inclusion into its growing sphere, but always at the cost of true independence and self-determination. For nations burned by Washington's shifting allegiances, Beijing's offer grows more tempting with each passing year, as the promise of stability outweighs the memory of past betrayals. Who will shape the new global order? Fractured Washington, struggling to maintain its influence, or patient Beijing, quietly building alliances? The board has tilted. Alliances are in question, and the rules of engagement are being rewritten in real time. The old order is dying. A new one is struggling to be born. Around the world, the foundations of power are crumbling, while new structures rise in their place. The space in between is filled with danger and uncertainty, as nations navigate a landscape where yesterday's certainties no longer apply. When the dust finally settles, will we even recognize the world that's left? Or will we find ourselves in a reality shaped by choices made in the shadows of old alliances?